right? It's this highlight reel effect where everybody, we think everybody's life is perfect and we know that it's not. But when we compare up, instead of using that as like a mirror where you're looking at like, I'm not good enough, why don't we pull something out about what that person does and think about what they, like, how are they executing that?
Welcome to Game Changers, Athlete Edition. I'm Kortney Harmon, a former Division I softball pitcher turned high-performance business coach who knows what it takes to translate athletic mindset into real-world success.
And I'm Julie Jones, a Hall of Famer and former Division I head coach with more than 20 years of experience turned mental performance coach. Together, we bridge the gap between elite athletics and lifelong achievement, helping you unlock your full potential on and off the field. This podcast is your go-to source for inspiration, motivation, amazing guests, and actionable insights to help you elevate your game.
Today, we are going to be talking about competing anyway, whether it's being competitive even when you really don't feel like it. I'm super excited to dive into this. I was talking to Julie prior to clicking record, and this was a topic that it impacts everybody. I'm coaching 10U travel ball. It's affecting 10U travel ball. Julie's going to talk about how it affected us in college and what she sees across the board. So I'm super excited. We're going to be diving into confidence and why it's just a feeling, but really not just a feeling, but a competitive choice, a behavior that you can control every single day. If you've waited to feel ready before performing your best, this episode is going to shift your entire approach to competition. So Julie, confidence. It's not just a beginner thing. It's not a latent thing. It's you face this every day thing.
Right. And all of us face this every day. So I was working with an athlete named Allie, who is a Power 5 or Power 4 now college soccer player. And we were talking about confidence. And she said, my dad always said, you need to have more confidence. You need to have more confidence. And she said, until we had a conversation, she said, I really didn't understand even what confidence was. Like, what does it mean to be more confident? People use that word and they throw it all over the place, but how do we really define it? And I heard, I don't know if it was Brenda Burchard or someone I heard talking about confidence, and I read it again somewhere just the other day. And it said, confidence is really just believing that you can figure it out, right? Believing you can figure something out. Now, sometimes we don't believe we can figure it out. So we have to throw some evidence in that shows, and we'll talk about how we can do things like that. But confidence is a feeling. It's a feeling. Kortney, you were relatively confident as an athlete, but you at least looked confident with your body language and all those kinds of things. But I am sure there were times throughout your career that your confidence was shaken just like mine, I'm sure. Do you remember anything specific about your career?
I'm sure. And I look at this more like, obviously from me coaching younger kids right now, like, I don't think I was confident when I was younger. Like, it was like, you didn't have enough reps, right? You didn't have enough reps. You were put in it in an inopportune time. I remember the very first varsity game I was put in. I was put in with 2 outs, bases are loaded, and I played for Strasbourg. And it was, you performed. And I remember my mom saying, buddy, why did you do that? Like, why did you put Kortney in at that time? He's like, it wasn't a big deal to me. But I could tell you I was nervous then.
Sure.
Now, in college, I don't really remember confidence. I kind of like, I hate to say this, I tuned a lot of people out. Julie, you may or may not have been one of them for a period of time. But like,
that's something that sometimes we have to do.
But it wasn't even a tuning out. Like, it's just like you hear certain people during games and you like figure out who your people, like, I do better when I listen to, or like I hear Kyler, or, the difference of who you're responding to. But I think I was born with this, how hard could it be gene? And it's really the idea of whatever it is, we're going to figure it out, whether it's a bad play. And I think that was really what hit it. And Dr. Ziegler, working with our sports psychologist, my freshman year, I think changed my mentality. In high school, I knew I could throw it by everybody. You couldn't do that in college. Right. So I think my mind shift had to change. And I think it changed drastically, thankfully, because of her.
Right. And we're going to have her on here in one of the next episodes. So that's going to be great for both of us. But when we think about confidence and whether we feel confident or not, really has no bearing on what we can do physically, because confidence is a feeling. I think that's what we want to sort of go with in this episode, is that separating confidence out from being able to be competitive and being able to perform, there is nothing that really ties the two together physiologically, unless we allow it, obviously, to affect our physiology. But confidence is a feeling, and competitiveness is a behavior, a choice. Confidence comes and goes. I mean, there are days that I feel like I can go out and slay the world. And then there are days that I am not so sure that I can make a difference in somebody's program. Now, I know in the back of my head that that's not the case, because I have some expertise and experience that other people don't. But every now and again, before I get on a call, or like I was in Connecticut yesterday working with a team, and they've won 5 national championships, this team has. I mean, they win their conference every single year. It's ridiculous. So I sort of, on the flight out there yesterday morning, I was like, okay, what can I bring to this coaching staff that they don't already do? Well, obviously they hired me. They think I can bring something, but there's always in our mind this little question, and what we do with that question influences what happens next. So how do we separate a feeling out of what we're actually doing? One thing that I told the team yesterday, I said, short of someone hanging onto your arm or your leg, or you being hurt, there is nothing that you emotionally feel that changes your foot speed, your game knowledge, your ability to see, your arm strength, or all those things are a constant.
Mhm.
I mean, in fact, they usually go up unless you don't work, right? Your game knowledge goes up but you show up the same, like you show up to work every day with the same set of skills.
Mhm.
But you don't show up to work every day with the same mindset.
No. And I wish there was a button to change that.
Right.
Like, wouldn't that be so much easier?
Well, here's the example I used yesterday. I use a video of an airplane flying in a storm, right? And it's rocky and crazy, and everyone on the plane is noise and fear and doubt and second guessing and all these different things, all the things that happen to us when we're competing.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. The pilot has a dashboard in front of him, an instrument panel that says, hey, you're losing altitude, or you're gaining altitude too soon, or you're going to run into turbulence, right? There's a guy in his ear telling him all these things. We don't have that.
Mm-mm.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. Like, hey, hit my mindset button. It would be awesome. But there are tools that we can use to help us sort of regulate and be more consistent in that way.
So
I could have done a much better job as a coach of that. I can tell you that right now.
I mean, if I had some of these things to think about when I was playing, I'm sure that could have been a different outcome too. But I guess my question to you is like, and I'm looking at it again from smaller kids, but like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Does confidence come first, or does that competitive, like, skill, knowledge base? Like, some people are like, well, I got to get confident before I can even move onto the field, or I got to get confident before I can ever play a position, or, you know what I mean? So how do we get there? I mean, because that's really the thing we need to overcome, because it's a mindset to say we have to be good at something before we move forward.
Right. And I think the world's best entrepreneurs say yes before they even know what they're doing. They do. You think about it. I work with a nonprofit called Future Plans, and the CEO was the vice president at Ball & Wallace when I was there, and she's a genius, and she's amazing. But she says yes to stuff. Like, I've been with her, like, in person, and she'll say yes to stuff, and I'm like, really? Like, you can do that? You have the framework for that all laid out? And then we walk away, and I'm like, are you ready to choose? No, I don't have the framework for that laid out, but I trust that I'll be able to get it done, because I know that I can do this, this, and this. I'm like, okay. She said, if you wait until you have all the framework laid out, the problem is going to change, and then you're going to have to adjust anyway. Like, what's a really good way to look at it? But I think your chicken or egg question is really important, because, you know, most people think they have to be confident. They have to have found success before they're confident. But how do you find success without taking a risk? right? You have to, I mean, so how do we build? So that's where I say, like, is it more important? I ask athletes this all the time. Is it more important to be confident, or is it more important to be competitive?
And what do
Because
athletes say to that?
they always say confidence, because that's what we talk about. You have to be confident. You have to be confident. I try to get them to see that if you can choose competitive behaviors, like, here's a question, right? What do competitive behaviors look like in your sport? Oh, so I have a worksheet here that I just used with a group just a couple weeks ago or a couple nights ago. Name the athlete you admire. What makes them great in your eyes? And this was soccer, so we're talking Alex Morgan and and Trinity Rodman and professional soccer players. They're in a room where Katie Scott's jersey is on the wall, right? And Taylor Huff and all of our Olympian, or not all of our USA players and pro players that are from this club that I work with. And then the third question, so name the athlete, what makes them great in your eyes? What competitive behaviors do they show? What makes them look competitive? And then we talk about body language, and we talk about all the different things, controllable, visible behaviors that show you're competing. Kortney, for your 10-year-olds, what kind of a behavior would make them look competitive on the softball field?
I mean, as small as they are, even hustling is a
Yes.
competitive. That I mean,
Yes.
it's as simple as the very, very basic at this age.
Right. Well, we recruited a kid to Akron, Tiffany Stevens, and the thing that caught our eye was that from the dugout to center field, she sprinted like a bat out of hell to get out to her position, and she caught our attention. And she looked confident. She got out there. She was taking up space. She's a really, real slight kid, but she took up space. She got into the box. She took up space, and she looked competitive, and she looked competent. Now, this is an interesting little nuance with the language that we use. People say, "Hey, you look really confident today." How do you know I'm confident? You don't know how I feel. When people say you look confident, they're really saying that you look competent. You look like you know what you're doing. That's competence. That's not confidence.
Yeah.
Right?
And they can very easily get mixed together.
Yes. We don't parse these things out, and we live in this culture, and it's well intended.
Yeah.
Build your confidence. Build your confidence. You got to be confident. You got well, that is a hollow word if people, number one, don't know what it means, and number two, when someone says, "Hey, you look confident," you have no idea. Like, I am certain that I look confident when I am not confident, because I am a confident looking person. I look like I know where I'm going all the time. All the time. It's just who I am. And people move out of the way sometimes because I look like I know where I'm going with a full head of steam. That doesn't, but what they see and how I feel might be two totally different things. But look at their response to me because of the way that I look.
And you're not a big cup of water. No offense. Like, you're not a big glass of water, but when you're on a mission.
Right. Right. Well, but you think about that. So if you're looking, so let's just talk soccer because we're in soccer season. A few controllable and visible behaviors that show that you're competing would be sprinting, just like you said, sprinting to recover defensively after losing the ball.
Yeah.
Right? Winning a 50-50 or trying to challenge a 50-50 with urgency. But tracking back when you're tired, asking for the ball and staying engaged, being communicative, keeping your body language big. Those are competitive behaviors that you literally can do no matter how you feel emotionally.
One of those things that I love is communication, because oftentimes when we're communicating, we're not thinking. Because oftentimes when we're not confident, we're lacking, or we think we're lacking, and our mind gets the best of us. But when we're talking, our brain slows down and shuts off for the fact that we realize, like, hey, we're cheering for the other person. I remember Dr. Ziegler told me, she's like, if someone makes an error in the field and they boot the ball, say, my bad, I got you next time. And I'm like, at first I was like, what do you mean my bad, I got you next time? Like, what if I pitched the right pitch? And they're like, no, it doesn't matter. Who's going to play better for you? Someone that's like, hey, I got you. And then
Yeah.
they relax because they're not overthinking like, oh crap, I did something bad. It was like, okay, we got it next time because you just talk through it and it's gone.
Right. Right.
And it's amazing how quickly that works. Sorry, go ahead. You were going to say.
No, I remember you learning that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you having conversations with Coach Kyler about that. And because it was our lesson for her to learn as well as a player, because as a pitcher, you're like, oh my gosh, now I've got to get somebody else out. But the truth of it is, if you're tense and you turn around terse, then those people behind you are going to tense up and their confidence, woo, the way they feel goes into the trash can. But if you go and you remind them of their competence and that they can choose a behavior that will help them perform better, that's better for you and for them. We all win. Right? But it's one of the things that we don't spend enough time talking about is asking athletes how they look when they're competing at their best. What do they look like? And how often do they watch themselves when they're at their best? Because most of the time we watch film of our mistakes.
Yeah.
But if you go back to Manny Ramirez, who played for the Indians back in the day, I think when you were in college, maybe or a little before you were in college, probably. But oh yeah, he was one of the most ritualistic hitting studiers in the game ever, from what I've read and been told. But he was in doing a pre-game film session on his own, as he had the same ritual all the time. And he just watched himself just crush the ball over and over and over and over and over and over. And I heard a guy named Zach Sorensen, who was his teammate, went in to watch, and he said, hey, Manny, why don't you ever look at the things that you need to adjust? And he's like, why in the world would I watch myself fail before I'm getting ready to go out and succeed? So he was building his evidence that he was ready and that he had the competence to go out and be competitive no matter who they were playing. Now, that's a mindset that we have to train, because our mindset, our innate mindsets like to go toward, I've got to fix this, I've got to fix this, I've got to fix this, I've got to be better, I've got to be better, I've got to be better. And yes, there are things we need to fix and there are things that we need to do better. But in the meantime, we've got to remember what we do well, and we've got to know what we look like, because if we don't look at what we do well and what is working, then how do we ever build confidence? Because we're not going to be consistent. So lots of C words going on here.
But what good practice? Because we always talk about, like, even like even with my boss today, like we talk about, what is your gratitude for the morning? Like your mindset shifts even as you get older. Like, but if I practice gratitude and I'm thankful, then my mindset's better to say, how can I serve and help people and do better? Not, I mean, granted, I have those days too, but like, oh crap, how many things do I have to do? I'm so far behind. It is life, but your mindset shift can make, they're big changes for such small actions, but it is a roller coaster. Do you have any studies?
Yeah.
You usually have a bunch of stuff around studies of
Studies.
that roller. I mean, not to put you on the spot, but like
Right.
confidence fluctuates like a roller coaster. It can depend on per play, per inning, per game. I mean,
Right.
no one, as much as we all would love to, no one has it confident 100% every single time.
Right. So there's, in sport psych models, if you will, right? Confidence helps persistence and the interpretation of stress, but performance can still be driven by controllable behaviors, right? And task focus, even when our confidence is low. So research says that if we can focus on winning what's in front of us, just managing the little things in front of us, or breaking things down into small steps. I don't know about you, but I try to break things. When I look at the whole picture, I get overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. I like to use the analogy of, if you're on a trip at night, your car headlights can only see about 200 feet in front of you. You can't see the whole journey. Mm-hmm. And but you have a goal, you know where you're going, and you have directions on how to get there, but you can only see about 200 feet in front of you. But if you're trying to get past those headlights and you're not looking at what is being illuminated right in front of you, you're never going to make it. You're going to hit a curb, you're going to run a stop sign, you're going to hit a pedestrian. Who knows what you're going to do? You're going to run into the guy in front of you, right? Because it's breaking it down. I even break my workouts down into 15-minute segments. Why? I do 45 minutes every day. Doesn't make any difference. But if I break it into 15-minute segments, it makes it seem easier. Because I can quit after 15 if I want to, or 30 if I want to. I never do. But for whatever reason, just keeping things manageable in front of us instead of looking at outcomes and literally focusing on process. Well, research says if we can think, okay, momentum is built moment by moment by moment. So if I can do this step and then this step, and now all of a sudden my competitive behaviors are making me feel better about what I'm doing. But if I wait to start until I feel confident, I may never take the first step. Because how am I going to change the way I feel without any emotion?
You can't.
I don't mean emotion, like literally movement. Motion. Yeah, right. Exactly.
But you did mention in the notes that you had sent me,
mm-hmm.
competing anyway.
Yeah.
That's hard for people, like, to think about that, to overcome. Like, I'm with you. I maybe not 15-minute intervals, but I had a note yet today saying, hey, what about this meeting tomorrow? I'm like, is it bad that I haven't even looked at tomorrow yet?
Right.
Or is it bad that I haven't looked at the next station at practice yet? Because guess what?
Right.
I'm right here, right now. I'm engaged. I haven't gotten that far. But you made a very strong point in guess what? Go compete anyway.
Right.
How do you teach that? Give me ideas. Help me mold my little travel team.
One thing that I just did with a group was I asked them to pair up. And this is something you could do with the team very simply. I asked them to pair up and tell the other person what they see in them that looks competitive. Because we may not even realize what our competitive behaviors look like. Like, you always do this. And when you hear that from somebody else, that you're like, oh,
I should do more of that.
Right. That, okay. And it feels good, right? Someone's noticing your effort, and you know how you feel inside at that time, but then they're seeing what you look like. And that sort of says, hey, I'm competing anyway. They look at me as being competitive. Inside, I'm a mess, but they look at me. So I am competing anyway. I just don't realize I'm competing anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So if I realize I'm competing anyway, that sort of almost boosts the way I feel, to say, look, even when I feel this way, people think I'm killing it. I'm just being really hard on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's really what we do. So that's one thing that is really helpful to do. The other thing, so I worked with a college wrestler. His father was a 4-time All-American at the same school that he went to. And his goal was to be an All-American. He wanted to be like his dad. Well, he had, in some ways, some really, really tough breaks. Injury, changed weight classes, different things, and then of course transfers come in and change your position a little bit. So he would change weight classes. And going into his senior year, we sort of changed. His focus was so heavy on being All-American that because he wasn't, his confidence had been shaken. So although he had done very well, right?
Yeah.
But being All-American, like, I get to be in the top 8 in the country. So like, that's hard.
The big feat.
So we started an evidence journal. And I think we've talked about the evidence journal before, but this is really, really helpful. And I have almost everyone, a team just the other day said, we are doing this because this is going to make a difference. If we can write down before we play, even the things that we've done, or every day, just one thing you did to make yourself a better softball player. Now, our 10-year-old's going to do this? Probably not.
No, but when you can do it as a team.
You can do it as a team. Absolutely. What's one thing you did or learned today that made you a better softball player? Even if it was, you know what, I booted the ball, but I ran and got it to the next base. Because that is a competitive behavior. And if we can point out these competitive behaviors, then we are much more likely to repeat them. right? Another thing that we can do pre-game, we can use our reticular activating system. It's this system that's at the bottom of your brainstem. It's a filter. It looks for basically 4 things. When you hear your name, it gets your attention. When you feel a threat, it gets that attention. When someone's interested in you, gets your attention. Like that doesn't happen to us anymore, Kortney, we're old. But to kids, right? Well, probably to you when you're out. Yeah, but me. No.
Who goes out? I'm in bed by 8. No.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Well, when you're out like working, whatever. But anyway, back to talk for athletes, right? The last thing, and probably the most important thing that it notices, is what you believe. What you believe, right? And this is so important for all of us to understand because it filters out the evidence that could be true, but if you don't believe it, you don't let it in. So if I believe that I am competent, then I look for things that show me that. If I look for things the fact that I'm not, I look for things and I pull that out. I'm bad at math. Well, and then I'm going to look for all the reasons I'm bad at math, right? I can't do this or I can't do that. I'm going to look for all those reasons and I'm going to make that true in my own head. That's why sometimes getting information from other people that see the things that you can't because you block them out because that your RAS isn't even letting that in. If one thing that we can do in order to help us sort of open ourselves to this is to write down 1 or 2 things that we want to exhibit in the game, behaviors that we want to show. Like I am going to, when I make a mistake, because I will, when I make a mistake, whether it's on the pitch in soccer, mistakes happen all the time. Whether I miss a shot in basketball, that's part of the deal. Steph Curry only hits 35% from behind the behind the 3-point line. He's the best in the world, maybe 37%. But if I swing at a pitch that I shouldn't, I am going to bounce back within 2 seconds or whatever, right? Whatever your goal is. When you write these things down or even just say them out loud, writing them down is even better because then it goes into a different part of your brain. You start to look for opportunities to do that. Mm-hmm. Here's an example. You buy a new car and then you realize that everybody in the world has your car. You didn't notice it before because you didn't care about the car, right? We bought a Volvo. I had no idea that 5 people in our neighborhood had a Volvo. No, I didn't even pay attention. Didn't care about the Volvo. Now I'm like, interesting. Thank goodness nobody had the same color as us.
I have good taste. That's what you need to think. I have good taste.
Right, exactly. Or if I tell you today to go out and find a heart in nature, you'll find a rock, you'll find a cloud, you'll find something because you're looking for it. Or even like in my office, I say, okay, look around, just look around and notice what's around your area in your office. And then I say, okay, now look for something that's orange. Well, you looked right past the orange before, and I know you've got your Halloween decorations up. I saw them on Facebook. So, and I see something behind you. But now you're like noticing every little thing that's orange, because that's what we're looking for. So there are tools that we can use that will allow us to, search and find these behaviors and then enact them because that's what we are expecting to do.
What are those tools?
Well, that's one of them, right?
Just paying attention to that.
Yeah, using RS.
You also talk about a reset tool too. And you talk about this. I've heard it from athletes. Now, I know we've talked about it slightly, but I almost think is now the time that what is that go-to reset tool for people? Because I think that's really probably important to learn at a younger age too, to kick it to the curb or, it's you talk, I'll be quiet.
Right. Well, so Ken Ravizza, who actually was, had a big influence on Dr. Ziegler, who obviously then helped us. He used something, flush it, right? So, and every baseball dugout with the teams that he worked with, they had a toilet in there, a little, fake toilet, and they would flush the toilet and let that thought go away, right? So that's one little thing. That's a kind of a reset. But the thing that we use is I ask people to do something. So, for instance, when we were at Cleveland State, and your senior year in particular, we were good, right? And it was really fun to watch. Like, I loved watching us play. And we would be in the 6th, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to win 40 games. This is amazing. So I started thinking ahead. And when I'm thinking ahead, guess what I'm not doing? Coaching. Right, not coaching. So I made myself a reset. I would pinch the side of my leg, just like right where my hand hit my, right at the bottom where my fingers hit my leg. And I would say, do your job. Right. Fast forward to Akron, we had a kid leave. I was very upset about it. Really, I knew it was going to hurt the program. And I was not happy about it at all. And it was just it was like, coming into my mind all the time. And I needed to reset from that thought. So it's not even just like a behavior on the field. This can be just to help reset to a thought that helps us instead of one that's holding us back. I'd be walking around and I would just turn my hand over and say, turn the page. Turn the page. You're in a new chapter. Turn the page. Right. So every athlete, and lots of athletes say that they have them, but the question is, if you're doing something, if you're holding your bat up, or if you're, tightening your ponytail, or like Katie said, she hits her legs and says next action, doing something physical is great, but what your brain is doing at that time is really key, because it's got to be something that allows you to let go of the thought that you have and choose a different one. Mm-hmm. Right? Choosing a different thought, which makes you feel different. Right? So in this case, if you're not feeling confident, instead of thinking about how you feel, we need to think about what we need to do. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
You do a lot of things that you don't want to do or don't feel like doing. So,
but they build on each other.
Yes. And then you do the first thing and it takes your attention to that. Right. And then you do the next thing and all of a sudden our confidence, we start to feel a little bit, we start to roll. Right. The more we think about what we're doing, like physically, like break it down. I mean, I don't want you thinking like, oh my gosh, I've got to get my elbow in the slot and I've got to do all these different things. We're not talking about that. Okay. What's my plan for right now? What's important now? What's the most important thing right now? Okay. It's to focus on the ball. Let's keep it that simple. Right. Because the ball doesn't care how I feel. It really doesn't matter who threw the ball, because once it's out of that person's hand, it's just me and the ball, just like on a tee or just like on front toss. It's just the same. It's just a ball and me with the bat in my hand, or me catching a ball from whoever threw it. Doesn't make any difference where it came from. I have one job, and that is to keep my eye on it and then do what I'm supposed to do with my hands.
Right? And that builds upon us as coaches and what we should be saying to our kids and how we simplify it to our team and us as parents. We've talked about this a million times. I'm the person that after a game debrief of all the things but it's, hey, my message today to my team is go have fun. I don't care how the scrimmage goes. I need you to hustle and have fun. Those are the only two things I even care about today. Right.
Hustle and have fun and help each other.
Yeah.
Right. Hustle, have fun, help each other. Those are three great things. Mm-hmm. Part of our confidence issue comes from comparison. And I wrote my tip about this last week and talking about how comparison can be helpful, but usually it's hurtful. When we compare up, it makes us feel pressure. Sometimes it can be good because we look at someone better than us and we think, okay, that's good. I need to do that. But most of the time when we look at people ahead of us, it makes us feel unworthy in lots of ways. But if we look down at people below us and we compare, it might make us feel okay for a minute, but really it sometimes makes us coast. So both can be very unhelpful, right? Both can be very unhelpful. So we have to be careful with comparison as coaches in general. But more than anything, when we look at comparison, if we're looking at someone that's better than us, instead of using it like, okay, because I see people, on social media that do what I do. And I'm like, oh man, they're doing that. I wonder how much money they're making. Or I wonder, like, it's not about the money, but like, I wonder how many clients they have. Or I wonder, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And I think, okay, stop. Yeah. You got your own thing. But I'm old and this happens to me. So it happens to kids, right? Yeah. It's this highlight reel effect where everybody, we think everybody's life is perfect and we know that it's not. But when we compare up, instead of using that as like a mirror where you're looking at like, I'm not good enough, why don't we pull something out about what that person does and think about what how are they executing that? So like, I'm never going to be as fast as her. I compare myself and I'm never going to be as fast as her. Well, maybe there's one thing, the example that I used in the tip was this. It's like, okay, she's faster than me. Her first 3 steps are, I need to focus on that this week. And if I focus on that this week, that is going to make me better. So now I'm using comparison to help build my confidence, but I'm focusing on an action and a behavior instead of a feeling, but it's going to make me better because I'm actually learning something and trying to improve my skill instead of making myself feel, ugh, I'm never going to be able to do that. And you have kids on your team that say, oh, I'm never going to be able to do that.
I already have had conversations with parents, and we're only one scrimmage in. So yeah. It's hard. It's especially with young kids, even like as high school. All these things that we're talking about and the knowledge that you have, and even the stuff that I broke down, like that's not stuff till I learned much older. Like trying to distill that to younger kids, middle school, high school, heck, even some college kids, because that's what you're still teaching.
100%. Yes.
But it's a different type of coaching that oftentimes gets put on the back burner because we're struggling just to learn skills to begin with.
Right. And really, in all reality, that's where they need to really start to feel or understand that they are competent, that they can do this. And if they believe that they can do this, then it helps them when they get under pressure situations to trust. And we've got to be able to, switch to that trust brain because if we're overthinking about anything when we're trying to perform, we're more hesitant, right? We're going to be slower. So for instance, I was working with a basketball program and they're like their 3-guard. She would say like, oh, every time I like pull up to shoot, I think, does coach think this is a good shot? Because she wasn't confident in her. I'm thinking, okay, well now someone's in your face. Too late. Right. So we have to be able to trust our eyes, and that is a competitive decision, right? That we need to make. I guess for young kids, right? Getting them to even understand. I don't think they ever think of what competitiveness really is, and it's a behavior.
Yeah.
Right. But there's some questions we could ask them, and I've got a few. What does being competitive look like in your sport? What would I see or hear from you? And for them to be able to discern and explain what that looks like. And that's where you can pull in from your hero, right? Because, maybe the kids that you play with don't look that competitive. There's always one. Yeah. That's killing it. Then the next one, how can we tell someone is being competitive without looking at the scoreboard? Right? Because it's really not about the scoreboard. How can we tell someone's being competitive? What would you see when you're looking at somebody else? Name a day you didn't feel confident, but you still performed. What'd you do? Because every emotion that we feel when we're getting ready to go and play something, we have felt before somewhere in life and we've made it through it. Like our success rate of getting through tough emotions is 100%.
Yeah.
But we forget what we did to get through that emotion before. Did you take a deep breath? Did you do a reset? Do you have something that says, hey, like for instance, like if someone doesn't like what they're doing at the plate, I literally tell some of my athletes, turn your back to it, put it behind you. Put it behind you, like literally and figuratively, now it's behind you. That separates you away from what just happened in the way that you felt after you didn't like that. Right? Which 3 competitive behaviors can you execute every day, regardless of your mood? I can always walk into practice and have eye contact. No matter what. I can always walk into practice and talk to my teammates. I can always hustle. That's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a choice, right? And then the last question that I have here that we've used before. How do you want teammates to describe your competitiveness at season's end? Thinking ahead. I want them to say that I was gritty and that I bounced back and that, no matter, what the circumstances, I was able to do my job. Like even just getting kids to think about what competitiveness looks like gets them away from worrying about how they feel. Now, is it important? Yes, we can't like pretend like we're not afraid, right?
Yeah.
We acknowledge it, we validate it and say, it makes sense that I'm nervous. It makes sense that I'm not confident because this really means something to me, but I can still play.
All good things. And we have a worksheet that we're going to put in the show notes, right?
Right. And I can also add those questions. We can add those questions in because I think those are great questions for us to ask. 10-year-olds, why not get them to sort of think about this?
Because even little kids, they look at someone else and say, oh my gosh, he's really good. Or, oh my
Right.
God. My 11-year-old came home and said, well, I was told, this is really funny. You'll get a kick out of this. I was told by one of the good ball players that I throw like my mom. And I said, hot dang, did you say she's really good?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they don't know. Yeah.
The kid made it as an insult. And I'm like, but
Yeah.
how'd that make you feel? He goes, well, the way he said it made me feel pretty good. But the way I know he meant it probably made me feel bad. And I'm like, well, stick with the first way that you felt good about it and just roll with it.
Right.
But
Okay, that's
they all look at this to say, what are you doing? How are you performing? What is that pressure? So I love those questions. So we're going to do that. What are the other things that we're going to put in the show notes? You told me there was two.
we're going to put, we'll put the worksheet that we talked about, look at who's your hero? What do they do? We'll add that in. And then one last little thing that we can teach everyone to do is when we feel under pressure, when we're not confident, we change the way we breathe, right? We don't breathe as deeply. We don't breathe as, our cadence changes.
Yeah.
We become much less, we take less time to breathe in. And that is not good because carbon dioxide gets built up and blah, blah, blah. So we can teach young kids to take a deep breath when they don't feel the way they want to feel. And it does change what your body's doing. So whether they do what we call a physiological sigh, where they breathe in and then they take another quick breath and then they breathe out longer, like that's the number one way to lower your stress response. Or if they just breathe in to 2 and out to 4, because what happens is when you breathe, intentionally, obviously you're breathing all the time. When you intentionally breathe, you're able to slow your heart rate, you slow your brain waves, you reset your vision, because when we breathe rapidly or in a shallow manner, our vision actually shrinks. We lose our periphery because the blood in our brain drops, right? So there's like a wine bottle of blood running through your brain every minute of the day. And when we change our respiration, we lose blood in our brain, which is not good, right? So but then we can quickly reset that just by learning just to breathe in and then out twice as long as we breathe in. So whatever the cadence is, what's real for a 10-year-old, what's real for a 20-year-old could be different. There's all kinds of different ways to do it. But this is a great tool to learn at a young age, because in order to breathe, it brings you back to being present. It reminds you that you're in charge of you, right? And it allows you to, at that moment, choose a different thought and just break away from whatever was sort of eating at you just for that, that 6 seconds or whatever. And then our mind wanders so much, we're on to something different.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a good reset. Just so simple. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. We could talk about all kinds of fancy things we can do, but truthfully, if we can learn that tool, I use it like when I'm driving, I like deep breathe all the time, because I feel like that's when I think about all the crap I have to do and I start to feel overwhelmed. It's like, okay.
At least it's not because of road rage. That makes me happy.
Well, usually.
What good piece of advice. And honestly, that's for any and every age, and heck, even us as adults and coaches as well.
Yeah. Right. If we can go back to, just saying, if we can pick 3 competitive behaviors that we'll do no matter how we feel every day, that is a great start to being able to show up regardless of anything else that's going on around. Because when you're at practice, you can't be doing anything else. When you're in a game, you can't be anywhere else. You have chosen to show up there. Let's figure out how we can be our best regardless if we're a little bit afraid, whether we don't trust ourselves, whether we're frustrated, but being able to pick those competitive behaviors and choose to focus on what's right in front of us, that can be a game changer, literally.
I love it. Anything else that we didn't talk about? I know you have had a lot of notes. Is there anything we didn't cover? Because this seems like very good starting points to address, and almost sounds like a challenge of the week at this rate. I'm going to make it a challenge of the week for my girls. That write down your 3 competitive behaviors to bring every single day, even when your confidence wavers, track them, address them. And I think that's our challenge of the week.
Right. Wouldn't it be great to have them all? It'll take a few minutes, but wouldn't it be great to have them all be able to share that and have the confidence, quite honestly, to talk about how they know they can show up and just make that the norm. Now we're encouraging them to talk about going out and being their best instead of like hiding back and don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or whatever it is that girls do. And then guys too. It's the same thing because there's doubt there too. They just show it differently.
Yeah.
They just show it differently. But that would be amazing to have, if you have 12 girls or whatever it is, okay, what are your 3? And then
sounds like homework and an index card to me.
That's right. Index card is perfect. I think it's great. That's a great idea. And think about what you're doing for them if they continue this throughout their life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great foundation.
It is. Well, and hopefully this episode helped a lot of other people. If it helped you separate your feelings from actions, share it with a teammate who needs to hear this message. There's plenty of us that feel this way that we don't convey, or to a coach to share it with the team. So, Julie, I thought this was great. Short. I want to say it was a short bite-sized episode, but it was 45 minutes long. So we might still break it into 2. But such good actionable pieces of advice. So I appreciate your thought and the effort of being intentional with this topic.
Great. Well, it's something I think is important for us to think about because, again, being competitive is a feeling, feelings change. Being confident is a feeling, feelings change. Being competitive is an action, and that's a choice. And sometimes we just have to choose so that we can feel different, because that usually follows. It's a pretty cool little symbiotic relationship, if you will. So that was fun. Thanks, Court.
Thanks so much for joining us on Game Changers Athlete Edition. Remember, champions aren't born. They're built through dedication, perseverance, and the right mindset. If you found value in today's episode, share it with a teammate, with a coach, or someone who could benefit from this conversation. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast and follow us on social media for exclusive content and daily motivation. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and stay focused on becoming the game changer you're meant to be.